So, Pat Crotty, of course, the Crotty name is well synonymous with life in Kilkenny. You were just telling us offline, it all goes back to bread, the daily bread.
It does. They arrived in Kilkenny in 1870 and started in Parnell Street. And one wing of the family moved into what is now Malloy's, and another moved into what was then Rowan's Bakery in Rosehill Street, and that was our wing. My grandfather bought that business in 1926. Ran a great business there, raised 10 children there. Well, 4 of them were raised there, the other 6 were raised out in Airfield when he bought the home out there. And we survived there for a very long time. Indeed, we survived way beyond the time when a lot of the small to medium-sized bakeries went bust when the supermarkets took over the bread business. So unfortunately, we morphed into the food and drink business, and we had been moving that way anyway. When I arrived home from college, I went to college in London, and I came home with all sorts of ideas, and the whole concept then was to add value to your product. You didn't just sell bread, you sold sandwiches. You didn't just sell a cake, you sold a cake with a tea or a coffee. And then you get into more foodie things, and that's the way we moved. And we moved into what was then Woolworths in 1986. And we're still there, thanks be to God.
Thank God indeed.
Yeah.
Pat, that length of time or that longevity of businesses, I suppose, now we hear of kind of, the buzzwords are like pop-ups and people are doing very different types of alternative businesses. I presume it gives yourself and the family at large that sense of pride to demonstrate both longevity but also versatility and adaptability, because of course those are all of the strands necessary for a successful business now.
I was just about to say that they're all the things that you need just to survive. And even within our business, where you would think that it's the same and it's a fixed thing, we're adapting and changing slightly every day. And if you don't do it, if you're not watching and don't have your finger on the pulse of what your customer really wants, and indeed your staff, so that you have a proper crew, a good crew of people, if you're not literally aware of all that all the time, you're going to fall behind. There's going to come a point where you're at the cliff edge. It's too late then. And I suppose Pat Rabbit used to say a phrase I love, that what you were saying there wouldn't butter any person. Longevity is no guarantee of anything. It's no guarantee of making a living. You have to have something that people want to buy. And that was the problem in the 80s and 90s, that we had much better bread than the supermarkets, but we didn't have a price. And that when you have recessions and things, people went for the cheapest price because it was a staple. Bread isn't so much a staple now as it was then.
Of course, yeah, it's very
back
much
then
involved,
was.
isn't it?
Now that's it. It's enjoying a resurgence again. There's so many small artisan bakers around the country now, and they're making fantastic bread and viennoiserie and all sorts of pastries and every sort of thing. It's fantastic. It's a treat to go into a little bakery shop again.
Yeah, and bread is sexy, both at domestic and high production level. Pat, I'm just mindful that pre-COVID, your business offering, your business model was very well respected and very well got and very well thought of. COVID came then and it altered people's ability to do business. And when people then came back doing business again, they had to do it in a very different way. In terms of you adapting your business to make it fit for purpose and fit for people to feel safe and to feel well and to give you that opportunity to perform, how did you have to come about that in terms of adaptations? Yeah,
there's a number of levels, Edward. The first one, before ever a customer comes in the door, is we have to see how could we have 60 staff in the place safe and safely, and to go home to their families and not bring anything home with them, and indeed to come in from their families and not bring anything with them. So we had to do an awful lot of training, organisation, and even more building our team into smaller pods of people, so that you have less overlap where it's necessary, particularly in kitchen. That if you have one went down sick, the whole place will go down. So that was the first level, and then the second level was to create a space in which customers would feel safe too. And some of that is optics, some of it is the visuals of what we do. So we put in an awful lot of screens, so that everyone's nearly in a little snug. And then the second one is the cleaning regime. And cleaning is the thing that up before COVID you would have done And when you're closed, you don't want people to see you cleaning. But with the COVID, you absolutely want people to see you cleaning every door handle, push plate, you name it, any kind of shared surface. You want them to see. And if someone is in with us for a meal for an hour and a half, they will see the same surfaces cleaned 5 times. Okay. Because it's the only way. And it may be overkill, but it's the only way we can do it. There are no half measures. Let's be as safe as we possibly can. And if something goes wrong, it won't be someone pointing the finger saying, well, they didn't do it right. We're doing as right as we can.
COVID aside, Pat, talk to me about the customers' hospitality expectations or expectations in hospitality at the minute. What is your kind of customer profile and what are customers looking for from you as a business provider?
It's very peculiar. There's 2 things. One, Kilkenny is a funny place in the first place. We can be busy in January when there's no visitors at all around. Okay. So in other words, on a Monday in January, we'll still get 1 fill a night. You won't have people waiting for tables or whatever, but we get great support from the local people. And then when you hit tourist season, if your reputation is good enough, and please God ours is, we get good support from visitors as well, and the hotels and other accommodation people recommend us to people. So we do very well out of that. Obviously there's none of that. We're dependent entirely on the local and the Irish visitor. And the other thing that is peculiar about people is, since the last recession, if you go back to the noughties, for those of us who are able to remember it, we got very affluent and we got to like 5-star things and being very posh and plush and all sorts of things. And then the recession came. And since then, people still have the taste for the trappings. They didn't have the same money to spend on it. So my view is that if you can give them as plush an experience as possible, as good an experience in terms of the ambience of the premises and the service that they get and the product they get, as in we do an awful lot of cocktails and that's all playing into that space, and people like it. And if you don't charge them too much for it, they can afford to come back again next week and do the same thing. So the model has worked for us. I'm not saying it'll work for everyone or that it'll work for us forever. At the moment, that is a model that is working.
Absolutely. I know from a customer point of view myself going in, that sense that you can get that sense of place and you get that sense of food providence as hugely important as well, with lots of the local projects appearing on the menu. Pat, I was thinking about chatting with you today. I was thinking back, we were looking at this whole notion of Kilkenny and this sense of place and different people's upbringing in Kilkenny. Your father, of course, was a long-standing and well-respected politician for Fine Gael, TD for Fine Gael in the Carlow Kilkenny constituency for a very lengthy period of time. I'm wondering what it felt like to be the son of somebody from the Carlow Kilkenny constituency playing their game and representing their area at national level. How was that for you, or how did your dealings or interactions with people? Now, of course, we've got the world of social media and everybody's a journalist and everybody's a political columnist and guru for public discourse. How was it then for your father? Because I mean, as the fellow says, not everybody's father was the TD in Leinster House. How was it for you as a family?
You could say it was odd and it was at the same time very ordinary, because my father never put any extraordinary pomp or ceremony into his position. He was still the local baker, he was still the local councillor. Back then, they were councillors as well as TDs, and there wasn't the same, or maybe there was the aura, but of course we didn't feel any aura. He was still our dad. There was nothing extraordinary. And you go all the way back, like my grandfather went into the Dáil in 1948, and he was the equivalent of a junior minister when there was only 5 junior ministers who were called parliamentary secretaries back in the inter-party government in the 50s. So you can go all the way through from 1948 to 1989 that there was my grandfather and my father in the Dáil and active at that level. So the one thing it meant was that everyone knew who I was. I was the young lad in the shop, but there was a queue in the shop of people in with their constituency issues and into his secretary or into him, depending on the day of the week. And so everyone knew. I literally used to walk down the street saying hello to everyone, even though I was looking at them saying, I haven't a clue who this is. But as they passed me, they'd say, "How are you, Pat?"
Yeah. So, you were known by the top.
Yes, you were. And so the worst thing you could do was not have saluted them, because then you were the one in the wrong. But say we didn't put any extraordinary store in it. I mean, there was occasions when you had the John Bruton's when he was Taoiseach, sitting in the kitchen having a cup of tea at 12 o'clock at night. Those kind of things happened, and again, they'd nearly be the wows. But local politics or TD level politics wasn't. It was just the way it was. We didn't put any. That's the way it should be. I mean, I don't think we should be putting them on pedestals.
Yes, I get you. I get you. Pat, of course, we've been asked during this time at national level to put on our national jersey and do what we need to do for our country. For you locally, what gives you the sense of pride to be from Kilkenny? If I was bringing you to Dublin or Donegal or Galway to meet someone and say, I'm Pat from Kilkenny, what would make you proud to be from Kilkenny?
Jeepers, that's where would you start, Edward? We have so much, like given that I'm in the hospitality business, we have some of the finest hotels, restaurants and bars in anywhere. I mean, we accommodation providers, we have people who excel and who have been recognised at national and some of them even at international level for the quality of what they do. You have the craft people across the street here. You have the modern iteration of craft, which is the artists in Cartoon Saloon and all those other companies that are doing all that fantastic work. Kilkenny just has so much to offer, and one of the things that I always think about Kilkenny, and I try to apply it even to our own business, but it's a Kilkennyism, and I remember it from my time on the corporation and became the borough council, that everyone came to Kilkenny to see what we were doing and to try and copy us. And I used to always say, well, we need to keep raising the bar, because we shouldn't be making it easy for them to catch up.
Yeah.
We should always, and we have people with talent and ability and ambition. I mean, you only have to look at Eamon Langton, what he's done over 30 years with that premises when it grew from a small little bar on John Street to a huge empire of the place. But he didn't just grow it, he grew it in a wild way. And other people have done similar things, that they create something that the rest of the country look up to and aspire to. And so you can look at any given front. We can win on any front, except Gaelic football. We don't worry about that.
We don't dwell on that. We have enough accolades. Pat, finally, people in hospitality industries, of course, are not known to have a mountain of time off, and particularly self-employed business people as well. If you had a day off, if we could grant you a day off around Kilkenny, what would you like to do? What would make you tick on that day?
In Kilkenny?
City or county?
Yeah, it would be in the county. I have brought a few people, when I've had visitors to Kilkenny and they're on the first visit, and particularly if the sun shines, there's a couple of extraordinary drives, and I would bring them out past Comer, out to the Swan, and then turn right and go across the ridge and down to Old Loughlin and down the Barrow to Graignamanagh and come from Graignamanagh back to Thomastown. Fantastic, unbelievable, quality places to visit all along the way, and just the scenery. And because Kilkenny isn't noted as the most scenic county when you look at the Kerrys and the Donegal's or whatever's, but we have extraordinary places, and that's to me a fantastic way to show people wow things again. And I love this whole concept of wow. If you make someone say wow, you won, whether it be a customer or anything else or a friend, that you have if you've wowed someone, you're winning. And the funny thing is, it brings it all the way back to the bread. I learned about all those roads when I was a teenager, when we were selling bread to all around the county, and I was delivering the bread to all those places, to Comforts and Coolbawn and up to the Swan and all across to Lynch's in Old Loughlin and all those. I know all the roads in the county. I could bring you in any given direction and not get lost. But that's the one to me that is the one that will make a huge impression on people and cause them to want to come back themselves. And
I presume that sense of connection with people that you know right throughout the kind of the city and county gives you that sense of place and that sense of who we are. It does.
I have a huge gap in my Kilkennyism, and it's not a regret, because everything I did I have got huge benefit from. But when I was 11, I went to Ring. For a full year. I did 6th class in Ring in Waterford in Irish College, and then I went to the Monks in Roscrea for 6 years after that, and then went straight from that to college in London. So basically from the age of 11 up to 21 I wasn't in Kilkenny other than on holidays. So I did miss out a bit on if you think of being parts of all the clubs, whether it be hurling or rugby or whatever,
Yes.
that's where you build up all those friendships and the school friendships. But I have extraordinary school friendships and sports friendships from the places I did go. So it's just, so maybe I have a slightly broader palette of available people to tap on for ideas and for friendship and for everything else. But it did mean I missed out a bit on the Kilkennyism, but I made up for it. You don't do 10 years on the Borough Council without being in every back lane and housing estate and everything else in the city of Kilkenny and further afield.
Absolutely, so. I could suggest that the deficit has definitely been narrowed in over the time. Pat, thanks for joining us for our Insight series. Again, it's just great to get to chat with people who have that great sense of connection with Kilkenny, and of course you as one of the fine bastions of hospitality and all things to do with, you know, culture and tourism in Kilkenny, which is huge as well. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thank you, Edward.